So guys, this show is really good because it's so hard to figure out, like, who is that other RD, and I think there's maybe another person involved in this, but I do have a pretty good new theory. We'll get to that in just a little bit. First off, let me say that Hester was not dead, and I didn't think she was going to end up dead, and she escaped from that meat locker just like everyone else seems to do. Of course, some people don't end up alive, but what is up with that? But I knew she wasn't going to be dead. I just knew it. I think she could be one of the people who survives till the very end, honestly. So Gigi is spending Thanksgiving with the RD, which I know that she thinks that it's the twin, like Boone's sister, and that is definitely who Boone thought it was, but I think that that is not the twin. This could be a guy. This could be a lot of different people. I mean, it could even be like Denise because she was absent in this episode. It could be several people, but I'm not really buying into the fact that it is the twin. All right? What do you think? Thumbs up if you agree with me. So we get a look at Chanel number 5's family. Now, I'm wondering to myself while I'm watching this, why are we taking this in-depth look at her family? Because really nothing happens in this scene. So I'm wondering if it's a clue as to the fact that she's like going to play a big role in the finale. Like maybe she's a bigger character than we thought she was, but her family is like some frozen food, dynasty type of family. Swenson is a play off the Swanson frozen meals from like a bazillion years ago. But her family's pretty terrible. They don't even care that there's a serial killer like stalking people and killing people on her campus. And they're all about themselves. And she decides she's just going to get up and leave because, I mean, who wants to put up with that kind of stuff? So the dean decides to spend Thanksgiving at the Kappa Kappa Tall house, and she's going to make a turkey and all that stuff. And turns out other people will end up joining her in just a little bit. So one of the funnier parts of this episode was Chanel's visit to the Radwell family. And even though Chanel's not a nice person, these people are 5,000 times worse than her. They're on like a different level rude, and they actually don't like her. They're not impressed by her. They don't think she's rich, and they don't want her to be with their son, which is kind of a good wake-up call for her because she's so conceited. The really funny part is that Hester shows up a little bit late into that dinner. She tells them all she's pregnant. They really dislike Hester more than Chanel, and they say some pretty humiliating stuff to her. I mean, it gets really bad. This is a really, like Chanel said, it's the worst family in America, hands down. So back at the Kappa house, a lot of people have shown up now, like Zayday and Grace's dad. And, like Chanel number 5, well, she comes later, Chanel number 5, but Chanel number 3 is there. And all of a sudden, all the different characters start accusing each other of being an RD. Now, if you've watched the Scream movie franchise, this is, I think, something that they've taken inspiration from because they definitely do this in that movie. And it seems like the people that get pointed out in that movie end up not being the killers. So I want you to keep that in mind because maybe that's the way they go. Some of it was just way too obvious. But first, the dean says that Chanel number 3 is obviously the RD because her dad is Charles Manson, and then she's like, wait, maybe she just made that up so that everyone would think that she wasn't the killer. I'm really not feeling the whole Chanel 3 being the killer. I don't know. I mean, this show really makes you think so many different people could be the other RD or a couple of RDs, and it's hard because every week I kind of get new ideas and new theories because that's how good really this show is if you think about it. So then Chanel number 3 turns it around. She's like, no, Dean, you are the RD. And then this just keeps going on and on and on. Back at Chad Radwell's house, Chad's dad offers to pay Chanel number 1 just to go away and get out of Chad's life. Of course, she doesn't accept this. At the Kappa Kappa Tau house, Chanel number 5 shows up late. Now, this was like a red flag moment for me because a lot of the stuff she was saying I don't believe at all. She claims that she went to visit her family for Thanksgiving, but they were on vacation and forgot to tell her. However, she was able to make like a stew. I don't know where she would have made that. Maybe she made it at their house. I don't know. I don't buy any of it. I don't even think she went home. I think there's a very good chance that she could be this twin sister because, if not that, at least a killer or one of the killers because, she's had 2 opportunities, which we talked about before, to be killed, and the Red Devil has spared her life, and that just seems way too suspicious to me. It was very suspicious how she shows up late at the KKT house, and there's some other things that happened that we'll get into, but she became like one of my number 1 suspects after this episode. So everyone pretty much figures out that the dean killed her husband because she was spotted eating a bologna sandwich, and then she's like doing other things with sulfates in it, which she should be allergic to, like eating that meat stew. She doesn't come out and say it, but everyone knows that, yeah, she is a killer, but probably not the Red Devil killer. Then things start getting really crazy at the KKT house because Wes thinks that his own daughter is the killer. He actually does bring up some good points because something we didn't know yet, she was actually at the KKT house when that Melanie Dorcas girl was disfigured by the spray tan incident. I think more about her is coming up, considering I believe the episode after next is called Dorcas, which I'm really hoping she's not the killer or something crazy like that, because that would really upset me, but she's way too minor of a character. But it did seem a little bit weird that Grace was there when all that stuff was going down. It also seemed a little bit too obvious to make her the killer. As you know, if you watch my other videos, she's been my #1 suspect since day one, so I'm still very suspicious of her and still think they could go that route. But after they made it so very obvious and pointed out obvious clues, it did make me worry just a little bit. Plus, Grace's dad actually saw her meet with someone dressed in a Red Devil costume outside campus one day, and we have seen the Red Devil exchange a glance with her outside. Now, Grace tries to explain this with a story that honestly doesn't make any sense to me. She says that Pete was dressed up in the Red Devil costume. We all know he had it in his room, but she says he put it on so that he could show people what to be on the lookout for. Now, I didn't buy that. Thumbs up if you thought that was a 100% lie. But Pete says that, it can't be her because it is Wes himself. It's Grace's dad, which what kind of boyfriend would blame their girlfriend's dad on being a serial killer? I really don't know. It seemed like he was really into trying to prove Wes was the killer, almost to make you think that he was trying to cover up for himself. I don't know. So back at the Radwell house, Chanel realizes that the family has gone too far, especially when making fun of Hester. She actually stands up for Hester, and she tells them, this is my sister, and we're going to leave. We are not going to put up this anymore. So Pete claims that Wes is the Red Devil because of several interesting things. One, which I found very shady, was that Wes was spotted on camera in that meat locker, and he actually used spray paint to cover up the camera so we couldn't see what he was doing. Now, we know that the people who have been placed in there have disappeared, so it would make sense if he was the one doing it. He says he was just stealing meat because we all know the girls only eat cotton balls dipped in sauce, and he didn't want them to find out. Now, why would he really care if they found out, since he knows that they're not going to eat it anyway? I don't know. Again, it seemed a little too obvious. The biggest bombshell, which was described by Pete in a funny way, Pete did some paid some people off to do some DNA investigating, and he even said he had a friend at the Maury show, which was kind of a funny joke, not to be taken uber seriously. But they found out that Pete was also the father of the twins and Grace. So that is a big, big, big bombshell in this episode, and I don't know how that's all going to work out, but that does make him look incredibly shady. But once again, does he look too shady? Does Grace look too shady now? Is it too obvious? The best part really of the entire episode was a moment that happened at the end, which I really wasn't expecting because it was kind of winding down and I wasn't expecting some kind of shocker moment. But the turkey served at the KKT house had been replaced by Gigi's head. She did look pretty funny there, you gotta admit. Now we have to figure out who would have had access to change out the turkey with her head. Funny thing is, if you watch the episode again, you'll see that they made it so several different people were kind of missing during the moments right before that turkey was brought out, like the dean, Grace and her dad, Chad Radwell mysteriously shows up, and Chanel number 5. There were a lot of people who could have had time to replace the turkey with Gigi's head. So I'm not sure. They make it very difficult for us. We had an awesome chat this week. If you haven't joined one of the chats yet, please do, because you're about to run out of time for this season, but they're every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on my channel, and that link and information is down below. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll always know when things are coming up. It's Kellie_TV. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would really appreciate it if you did, so that you don't miss out on any of my videos and the other shows that I have coming up into the new year. On Twitter, you can find out what those shows are. So please leave me your theories down below. We're running out of time to figure out who that other RD is, who the twin sister is. Do you think there's extra RDs or extra people helping? Because I think, yeah, that's a possibility. So I reply to all your comments. Leave those down below. You guys are awesome, and I will see you next time.
And I want you to be mine again, baby. I know my life